Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. This evening we are doing Motley Crew chat number 21, which is kind of wild. And I have here Zack Argyle, author of the Threadlight series. Thank you for joining me, Zack.
I'm excited, yeah. I mean, you chatted with my wife not too long ago, and she said such good things that I was like, well, actually, I'm going to do it.
That was such a fun conversation. It's always funny because you kind of get to know people by watching their videos, but you never know, like, are we, is it going to be a good conversation? I don't know what are we going to end up talking about. And yeah, we just had a great time. It was super fun. Hey, Zin.
I love it. Yes.
In my Discord, my husband's name is Mr. Beanie Queen. So nice. Yeah,
I'll take it. I like it.
Hey, Andrew. We're just keep shortening it.
So should I do a quick plug here and say Andrew's Wizardly Reads? Can you focus? There we go. Look at that.
Oh my goodness.
He is on the omnibus.
That is so paperback. Awesome. I love that artwork also, by the way.
Yeah, it turned out great. Is that an Austin Powers reference?
I don't know.
I haven't thought about that for a long time.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Chris.
Oh, Chris.
Hey, Brian.
I just met Chris last month.
Oh, really?
In real life.
That's right. Chris is awesome.
He's great, yeah.
Got Bo in the chat.
Bookborn was making fun of me for wearing a blazer, but
that's okay. You know what?
Bad.
It just like I said before, it's the respectable author image going on.
Yes, I know what I'm doing.
It was an Adam Gold comment.
Oh, okay. That's more respectable.
Right. Hello, everybody. Hey, Jim. So, Zack, my first question for you is going to be a really tough one.
Uh-oh.
What is something you read recently that you really enjoyed?
Ooh, that is a good question. So I am actually, on my wife's recommendation, reading A Game of Thrones for the first time.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty great. I mean, like it's like weird because nothing's really happening, but I am enjoying it thoroughly.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy info dumps. And I'm like, I feel like this would never get published right now, and yet I still like it.
Right.
So that's fun.
Right.
And I did enjoy Bone Shard Daughter. That was one of the
Andrew Stewart.
Yeah, there was some really cool world building stuff in there that I really enjoyed. An animal companion that is adorable, and I loved.
Nice. I love cute animal companions in my books. That is something I really enjoy.
Me too.
I was going to say one of the last videos from Bookborn that I watched was that her personality is now Game of Thrones, according to the thumbnail. So do you feel like that's kind of slowly taking over for you as well?
Absolutely not, but I am enjoying it.
Good.
Maybe after I finish book 2, maybe I'll get there. But
there you go. It's kind of more of a slow burn takeover with them.
I will say, like, the writing is definitely like more old school, and people who know me well know that I generally like more like of a more modern voice in writing. And so I do have to it is pushing myself to read it. But I'm enjoying it. I think it's good. Yeah.
Nice. So in terms of modern voice authors, what are some of the ones that you would point to immediately that are like, these are some favorites?
Oh, it's hard because there's different things that I like about a lot of them. I do really like Brent Weeks. I think he does a good job in a lot of ways. He got a lot of flack for his finale of the Lightbringer series.
I saw that, yes.
And I read it before all of the flack, and I was like, this is a solid like 4, maybe 4.5 star book. Like I enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of great things about it. But it was also one of those things where it was like, the more you think about it, the less of a great ending it is.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's all. I feel like, and this is another thing I wanted to ask you about, because having now a finished trilogy, where I'm on the very beginning of that, just starting mine, I would love to know, how difficult is it actually to follow up book 1 with the second and third book and tie everything together? And do you feel more pressure in the subsequent books, how did you handle trying to make sure everything landed?
Yeah, I mean, I can, at least my experience, I don't know if it's universal or anything like that, but the first book was hard for me to write. Just, it was the first book I had ever written, like Voice of War. I had never even like tried to write a book before. And I wrote it, shared it with friends, got great feedback, rewrote pretty much the whole thing, and it got into a much better state. And I published it, and I was like, "Yay, fun!" Really, just like I was gonna publish it in April of 2020, and then COVID hit, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna release it early. And so I released it in like March of 2020, and so my friends could read it while they were like, you know, stuck at home.
Yeah.
And I had no plans on anybody reading it, and so like it was difficult for like the writing, but there was no pressure on the book at all. Like I didn't expect anybody to read it. It was just for fun. And then it got picked up as an SPFBO finalist while I was working on book 2, and the pressure really built.
That'll change things.
But I loved writing book 2. I really, really liked that because things were already settled. I couldn't, you know, question myself and like change a whole bunch of things because they were already fixed. So book 2 was great. And then book 3, the ending was horrible. for several reasons. There's definitely just like so much pressure, especially people like book 2 more than book 1, that they're kind of expecting the same rise. You have all the threads that you have to finish. People want, you know, conclusions to everything.
The answers. Yeah.
They want it. They want it all. And and the thing, at least for me on the third book, was like all of these multi-POV characters were now all together. And I hated writing that.
It's easier when they're apart.
I love the idea, but then when you're like, well, I have, you know, at least 7 people in every scene, and they're like meeting some other people, and there's a conversation, and I have to like make sure everyone's accounted for the whole time in every scene, no matter what. And I'm just like, I just want like this person and these people to talk, and then these ones just to be ignored, but they're all there. So
well, and it's so hard when you've been staring at the book that long. Those details start to get really, and it's amazing because you look at it after a draft and you're like, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
True. So hopefully yours goes better.
Well, we'll find out. Yeah, it was kind of interesting because with Phased, I had kind of a similar experience where I just put the book out and my family and friends bought it, and it was like there wasn't any pressure with it. I was just publishing a book, and that was great. And now with Bloodstones,
now you're a famous booktuber. It better be good.
Well, kind of. Yeah, but I mean, even that, just the pressure change was like, kind of, it is a little mildly terrifying that people love it's awesome that people love your book that much, but then realizing like, oh, I really got to stick this landing. Yeah, that's I applaud you for finishing it out, and it seems like everything has just been, I mean, super successful, and a lot of people really love it.
Most people liked it.
Yeah, can't please them all, right? So
I'm happy with it.
In your 2021 year in review blog post, you mentioned that Threadlight kind of started as a fun side project. So how did you go from fun side project, I want to try this, to, you know, I think I'll actually be an indie published author?
Well, I mean, I didn't really even know about indie publishing much until I finished Voice of War. And then I was like, well, I want to get this out there. And then so I like learned about it, but I didn't really know about the community or anything. I knew nothing. Right when I published it, I had a friend from when I was like in child. I hadn't seen this person in like 20 years. And they were like, hey, have you ever heard about this Facebook group called 20 Books to 50K?
Yep.
And I was like, no. They're like, oh, it's a great like indie group, and you should like join it, and you can like learn some stuff since I see that you publish. I was like, oh, cool. And so I joined it. And for those who don't know, it's like the biggest indie publishing group in the world. They put on a big conference every year in Vegas. I think it was this week. It was this week.
Oh, was it?
A lot of people were in Vegas this week for 20 books. And so I joined that group. And one of like the very first week that I joined the group, there was a post from a guy named David Viergoots. And he was like, hey, I'm looking for other like adult fantasy writers to start a writing group with. Nice. But I only want people who are serious about making indie, like publishing, a career. And I messaged him and I was like, well, I'm not really planning on making it a career, but I did publish my book and I'm working on book 2. And like, I think I would love to join you guys. And so I was like, I don't know if he's going to say yes. And then he did. And then I joined up with the group. And so I'm in that group and we've been together for ever since. So it was like, I think maybe April or May of 2020 when I joined the group. And yeah, they're an awesome group. We had somebody drop out of the group last year. And so or maybe it was earlier this year. And we added in Jeff Spate, who wrote Paladin Unbound.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine. Great guy. And so he's been, we meet every Monday night. And so that was kind of like what took it to the next level and made it more serious.
Yep.
And I did it specifically because I was like, hey, I want to make sure that I don't start something and not finish it.
Right. Yep.
And so I was like, if I join a writing group, I'll have some accountability. Meet every week. Every 3 weeks or so, I'm going to have to submit something for people to review. So I'm going to have to write stuff. And so that's kind of what made it a little bit more serious. And they were all very serious about making careers out of it. And so I just learned so much from these guys as they were working on their different things. I mean, still learning a ton from them. Hopefully I'm like teaching them some things too now. I'm contributing. But it's been really cool. Yeah, it's been fun.
So I know like writing is such a oftentimes isolated craft, right? It's just us alone with a page most of the time. So how important is it for especially new writers? And I mean, I feel like at any point of your journey, but new writers coming into it, how important is it in your opinion to find some kind of a village like that?
I think it's really important. If you want to be sustainable, you gotta have people you can talk to things about. You can ping ideas off of, that you can share successes with. Yeah. Right? Because success, like isolated success is not, it doesn't last long enough. And so I think it's important to have people to share that with you. Even if it's just your spouse, but I think it's better if you have a group of people where you can like, it's fun for me too, right? Where like somebody in my writing group has a success. And so like throughout the week, we'll just get a message like, oh my gosh, this thing just happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like one of the guys in my group, he's been like trying to get stuff on TikTok going. And he posted like maybe a month ago, he's got this horror series called Dead Blood about a vampire and a zombie apocalypse.
Nice.
Such a good idea, right?
Yeah.
And he posted this little like 15-minute or 15-second clip. It took him, 2 minutes to make it.
Yep.
And it ended up getting like 1 million views and he made $8,000 off of it in like a 2-week period.
Wow.
And I was like, maybe I should try TikTok.
Right.
It was just like
I'm
so
on the
cool.
wrong platform.
And the whole time where he's like, he's like giving us like a live stream of this, like, oh, I've got like, I'm up to 25,000 views. I'm up to 100,000 views. Oh my gosh, 500,000 views. And the whole time we're like, dude, are they buying stuff or just getting views? Like, how is this like converting? And you like all the information the whole way. And it was so like exciting just to be. Oh yeah, that goes back to the point. Yes, I think it is important to have a crew there with you.
It's TikTok is such a foreign. It's weird because I know that I'm in the age group that should be able to figure out TikTok, but I feel like I'm secretly an 80-year-old woman at the time with this stuff. It's like I'm very impressed by people who really dedicate time to TikTok and do really well on it because I'm mystified.
I bought a like Bluetooth. No, it's not even, is it Bluetooth? I think it may be. I don't know. I got a microphone set that plugs into your phone that you can like clip on. It's like 2 calls. And I have some ideas on videos that I want to make next time when I go to the bookstore. And so maybe I will be TikTok famous.
We'll check in with you in 6 months and see how you're doing. Yeah.
Oh, but I was going to say, I was talking to Jim Wilburn earlier today, and he mentioned that you are doing NaNoWriMo.
I am?
He said you were doing Nano, and
I'm supporting all of my friends who are doing NaNoWriMo. I have done NaNoWriMo in the past. I think I've done it 8 years total since like 2009 or 10, maybe. This year I am stuck in KDP and Ingram Spark trying to get them to accept all of the files that I need to publish by the end of the month. Oh, no. So yeah, this year I'm not doing Nano, but we do have like on my Discord, we do have a writer's chat where a lot of people have been doing Nano and they've been doing sprints together on my voice chats, and everybody's really like encouraging each other and getting some good word count in. So it's been fun. I've been just sitting there and like trying to be the little cheerleader in the corner as much as I can.
Well, I
Have
was
you
going
ever?
to invite you into my spreadsheet because I made a nano
Oh
spreadsheet and I
man,
like
can I change
invited
my
some
answer?
people in there. And you
Are
can
you?
come in and you can feel bad about yourself when you look at Andrew Meredith's word count for the
You
month.
know, he's in my Discord too, and I just and he wakes up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, I'm not. Are you a morning person? I'm not a morning person.
Not that early of a morning person. I'm like, 6:15, 6:30, I'm good.
Like the normal morning person time frame.
Yes.
Yeah. So have you ever done nano? Are you doing it this
So
year?
that NaNoWriMo is where a lot of Voice of War was originally written, like the first draft of
Okay,
it
cool. I did not know
back
that.
in 2018 or 2019 or something. I did it
Mm-hmm.
with some other software engineer friends at the time.
Nice.
I was the only one who did it and then ended up publishing anything, but it was still, again, having some
Having a village.
accountability was
Yep.
great. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing again because I've been like struggling with motivation and like feeling overwhelmed with my new projects, and so I was like, I need some people in a spreadsheet to keep me honest and make me like force me into writing some stuff. So
yeah,
I'm not like blowing through any writing right now. I'm still like very busy with work and stuff. Like I just got back from a work trip last night. But I've been getting there.
Nice.
So
yeah,
getting some writing done.
Well, and so moving from Threadlight to something new, was it kind of a jarring feeling to have to go, because it is a completely different world that you're writing now. So is it like jarring to move to something completely different? Do you feel a little lost in a brand new world, or are you kind of immersing in it pretty well?
Yes. And it's because I want this one to be like even more epic than Threadlight. And so like the world is bigger. There's more threads happening at the same time. And yeah, it's like, I don't know, and I'm at the point where like I can still change anything I want to. So if I like I'm working on something and I have an idea, I'm like, oh, I could just change that. Well, but now I got to go back here and make some tweaks. I'm like, I should just focus, just keep going.
Yep.
But yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, I know you've shared a little bit on some of your platforms, but can you tell us a little bit about your current project?
Yeah. Well, so my current project right now that I've been writing for the last 4 or 5 days is slightly different, actually. It's a new project because, again, I was like feeling overwhelmed and I was like, I'm not getting like the word counts down that I want to. So like, I want to try doing this other thing as a standalone that I've been interested in writing for quite some time. And so it's actually a high fantasy whodunit mystery.
Ooh, okay.
And it's set in this world where sometimes two people who likely don't know each other, if they come within a certain distance of each other, they become immortal. As long as they stay within that certain distance of each other.
Okay.
And so these people are called paramortals. And so there's this Gothic cathedral that has, I think it's 6 pairs of paramortals at the start, but one of them dies, and it shouldn't be possible. And so, the famed investigator who's been off book for a while because his brother passed away, he gets recruited to figure out why the paramortal died. And,
nice.
It's been fun. Yeah.
I like that it's not just a mystery whodunit; it's an immortal twist on it. That's cool. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, there's going to be some good twists in it too. I'm excited. You want to know one of the weirdest twists?
Yes, I do.
I'm really excited for people to discover this if they do, but I'll tell you anyway. So there was a race of people in here who were like servants to the paramortals, and they're called the Marklaws.
Okay.
And they're like completely hairless, pale. They have black masks on with a big sunburst tattoo on the back of their head, and they wear like high black robes, high neck back robes. And so they're called the Marklaws. And the head steward, his name is Rents. And so he is Marklaw Rents. Mark Lawrence.
Nice. A little very subtle Tuckerization in there.
Yes, and I did it because
I love it.
In the book that wouldn't burn that he put out, there's a character named Zack Argyle. And so I was like, all right. I was like, bring it on, Mark. You're up next.
I know, it was funny. It's always fun in a community that's as small and tight knit as we're in. It's always fun to read through people's books and suddenly notice, oh, I see this person. I see that person here too. Like I'm reading Mike Shackles Until the Last here, and there's a Patrick in there.
Oh, nice. Love it.
So, yep, there's a lot of intrigued in the comments.
Working on it.
Brian has an idea for you.
I like it. That's good.
Will it be out in 2024? Andrew,
I don't know. This is another one that I think, because it's a standalone and a pretty like easy pitch, I think could do well with traditional publishers. And so I might try to see, because they like things that are, have like a one-line description of what it is.
Yep.
Right? Like the Book Eaters. 2 words, I've got an idea of what it is, and it's intriguing. Right? So I got
exactly
high fantasy, low stakes. Right? Perfect. You got Legends and Lattes. And so a high fantasy whodunit. I think that's a pretty easy pitch and kind of fun. So.
I like that. I've read a couple books this year that kind of blend like a murder mystery or something like that with fantasy. And we need more of that. So I love that idea.
Yeah, it's fun.
Let's see.
So the answer, Andrew, is probably not.
Maybe, probably not. How do you deal with it, and how do you deal with burnout?
I wallow.
Same. Kick your feet, complain a bit.
I don't know if I have a good answer for it, because I mean, I kind of gave a short answer there, which is like I was feeling burnt out in the project I was working on, so I tried something new.
Yep.
Right. I've got 35,000 words into The Fall of Cloud 7, which is that new epic series.
Yep.
But I was just like feeling unmotivated by it. Maybe it was just because I'm really busy with work, but yeah, trying something new really kind of helped.
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
I definitely feel that. It was funny because I actually wrote. So I should have put it in the description. I will add it to the description box after we're done. But Zach and I both have short stories in the Advent of Winter anthology that's coming out, which I'm so excited about. I cannot wait to get my hands on those. And I kind of did the same thing with that, where I was stuck in the middle of the Bloodstones, and I was just, you kind of get to that point where you're like, I need to spend some time just away from this for a week or two. And I started writing something completely brand new. It was like, it's a short story. I don't have to commit to anything massive. And I just want to play with something. And that was one of the best creative decisions I think I could have made this year, because it really kind of jostled the gears a little bit and helped actually kickstart me back into Bloodstones later. So,
yeah, and it's nice too, because if you finish the short story and you're like, that doesn't work, it's fine. Usually, well,
it's fine. On it. Or because we are idea generators, what happened was I wrote the short story and now I'm planning a series around it. So, as you do.
That's awesome.
We'll see.
I love it.
So do you struggle with that, where you just have too many ideas all at once, or are you able to pretty much focus on?
I'm usually pretty good. Like, I mean, I had the idea for this murder mystery thing, like, I don't know, 2 years ago or something. That was with, like the magic with the paired immortals.
Yep.
I gotta focus. Gotta get Threadlight done. Like, people are wanting to read it, but now I'm at the point where like I don't have anything planned. I have no planned releases, and I work very well under pressure. But now there's no pressure, and so it's, I don't know. I gotta find ways to keep myself accountable. So I saw a couple of my writing group friends are in the chat. So S.A. Klopfenstein is in my group, and then Jeff Spate was there. So they help keep me honest.
Well, inquiring minds want to know. Hoping you have performed your TikTok video idea with the Hamilton parody.
That's another idea that I have. So for those who know Hamilton, King George.
Yes.
He's got his super funny song.
Yes.
I wrote a parody of it from an author's point of view.
Love it.
Which is basically like, you say the price of my book's not a price that you're willing to pay. It's ridiculous.
I love it. all of the there's been a short idea that I've wanted to do for a while that's just things indie authors are sick of hearing. That is, there's a little bit to that effect as well, because it's indie's such a funny, it cracks me up, the barriers between just where the book comes from for people sometimes. Mm-hmm. Hi, Jeffrey. Let's see. I didn't want to make sure I got everybody's questions so far. There we go. We have pressure. This is kind of an interesting point too. Get too far lost in my world building, which is a huge problem for me. So how do you know, like, when to kind of set boundaries for yourself when it comes to world building? And just because you can really
doing a good job with this one right now.
Uh-oh.
With that new Epic series. No,
the new Epic series.
That one, because it's like, it's in a cathedral.
Yep.
And like, that's the only location for the whole thing. And so like, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I can sprinkle in like tidbits of world building and not even have to explore it, right?
Yeah.
Just like offhand things, like make the world feel bigger.
Yeah.
But the Epic series, like, because I expect it to get to other places and things like that, like I'm spending a lot of time on that. And
down the rabbit hole.
Even worse, after my Kickstarter did well, and I was like, look, I have all of these like author funds that I could like reinvest in stuff. And so I have 5 concept art pieces for 5 locations in the Fallout 7.
So when you go down a rabbit hole, you really go down the rabbit hole, is what you're saying.
Yes. So it's not great.
You know what? Sometimes that's what you got to do, Ryan, because it'll maybe be helpful for you later. Let's see. Zin wants to know, is it true bookstores don't carry indie fantasy?
It's not 100% true. If your books are available through Ingram Spark, which many indie books are, bookstores can buy them. Mm-hmm. Now there's the like discoverability problem, right? Where like, if it's going to be in a Barnes & Noble, then the Barnes & Noble bookseller, which is the one purchasing the books, has to be first aware of your book. And there are even reasons for them not to get it. A lot of indie books are non-returnable. Mm-hmm. And most traditional published books are, meaning that a bookstore can buy 10 books and at any point they can just send them back.
Right.
And those will go into a warehouse for the traditional publisher, and they'll be able to, repurpose them other places if another bookstore wants them. But because indies are mostly on-demand printed, if you do set it up so that your books are returnable, which mine currently are, you do run a big risk. And so this happened to me.
I was going to say, do you want to talk about that? Is it too soon?
I did have a big chunk of books that I don't know who bought them, but they got returned to me, and I have to pay the shipping and everything for them. And so basically, yeah, they've lost me money, but I do have a big chunk of books in my house now, which I will probably at some point do a sale for so I can get rid of them.
You're stocked.
But yeah, so the answer is like, they can. And some bookstores are a lot better about it than others, right? Like Silverstone Books now has their own in-person store, and they love indie books. I think it's mostly indie books that they have there. My local Barnes & Noble, like, they're great about it. They stock a bunch of indie books. Yeah, so it kind of just depends on the bookseller and the availability that you've set for your books.
Yeah, I'm sure you have like more of a open door with local as well, because a lot of stores, especially smaller stores, are very excited to support usually local authors, and they usually have the little local author section and stuff. So that's maybe sometimes a good spot to start.
Yep. I'm too lazy.
And honestly, it's funny because I network and talk to so many people, but the idea of going into a bookstore and trying to pitch my book for them to stock in the store is somehow way more terrifying. It's going to happen at some point, but yeah. Brian wants to know, as an indie author, do you feel like trad published authors sort of stick to their circle and indie to theirs?
I would say generally yes, but it's getting better. part of it's because we're all just starting to be a little bit more honest.
Mm-hmm.
Trad authors are often, not as successful as people believe.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to see a lot more people discuss it. Like if you've listened to the Publishing Rodeo podcast, I love that podcast. It's done by Scott Drakeford and Sunyi Dean, who both
Mm-hmm.
published from Tor the same year, their debuts. And Scott got a $10,000 advance, and Sunyi got a $100,000 advance. And because of that, Tor did not spend any marketing money on Scott's books, and so he has not really made any other money since then. And Sunyi had a huge marketing budget, and her career has soared because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
kind of luck
yeah,
of the draw.
It's a bit of luck of the draw, a bit of what what your agent knows, and how they can pitch things. So it's definitely more out of your control. But as far as like the relationships go, yeah, I think it's definitely getting a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it's just because like indie authors are doing really well.
Yep.
Right. There's a lot of indie authors who are becoming a lot more famous than their traditional counterparts.
Yep.
And so it's hard to ignore them at this point.
Right. And they're running some very successful Kickstarters, which congratulations about that, by the way. The omnibus looks absolutely beautiful.
I have
you have the, oh man.
This is the proof copy.
That's gorgeous.
But it does look very nice. Yeah.
It's very nice.
It doesn't have the sprayed edges though. Anyway, but yeah, so it's getting there.
You have the sprayed edges.
Well, I have so there's going to be like a stencil design on it. That's
cool.
printed on the edges. So
very
it'll
cool.
look even cooler.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is getting better. One of the interesting things though is like, I've had a lot of traditional. I mean, so first off, like I am interested in traditional publishing, right?
Yep.
Even though like I've made good money like in the indie world, I don't have to. There's a lot of traditional authors who have reached out to me with questions and interest in doing indie things on the side as well.
Yep.
Tons of authors have. I mean, frankly, like Brandon Sanderson is an indie author, right? His Kickstarter, he published 4 books by himself.
Yep.
And they got picked up by a traditional publisher. It's the same thing that happened to Legends and Lattes.
Yep.
There's a ton of like romantasy that's getting picked up now. Tor's got a new imprint. I can't remember, Bramble maybe I think is what it's called. But they're picking up people left and right that are doing like indie authors that are doing well.
Yep.
And so it's the idea of like a hybrid author is becoming much more normalized.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like the relationships between the two are starting to, like the walls are breaking down.
Yeah, which is nice to see, because I think at the end of the day, like there's obviously pros and cons to every option when it comes to publishing, and giving authors the option to pick what works best for them and really pursue the different options and even go hybrid if they want to. I just think it's awesome that we're starting to see more of a kind of osmosis, I guess, of that, which is nice.
Yeah. That's why I saw Chris. Yeah. Chris, this is a proof copy.
You can't have that one, Chris.
There is nothing inside. It is. Well, there are like the images are in there. I don't know where they are, but yeah, all of the pictures are there, but yeah, the words are not there. So they do have like the illustrations in there though.
I hope when I get my proof copy on Wednesday that the words are in there. I'll be really disappointed if they're not. So you have the most limited edition omnibus Threadlight edition ever.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Very limited.
Yeah, Ryan. You could write a whole new book in it.
Somebody was like, you should use it as a journal. And I was like, that's actually a pretty cool idea.
It's a really cool idea. And speaking of Threadlight, I do want to talk about it a little bit, because I want to touch on a couple of themes that you delve into in the trilogy that I think are really important, and I really appreciated how you handled them. And that was motherhood and mental illness. And I really wanted to talk about how you landed on those themes, if it was conscious, and how, like, what was important to you when portraying those.
Yeah. So I, to be honest, didn't go out set with themes that I wanted to hit. I had like people that I wanted to write.
Yeah.
And as they came to fruition, the themes emerged just through their eyes. Right. And so like Ariel, for example, the Chris's wife, like she had a kid, and like I have 2 kids. I know what it's like when a mom gives birth. I've got a lot of friends who have kids, and you know, postpartum depression is a completely real thing.
Yep.
And I was like, you know, I would love like a chapter from Ariel's point of view where she's struggling with postpartum depression.
Yeah.
In a fantasy world.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, use that as like a springboard for giving some useful advice to somebody maybe who's struggling with the same thing. So yeah, it wasn't really like planned from the beginning, but it was
right
through the characters as the story continued on. I was like, you know what are they struggling with, and how can we?
Right.
I like good quotes, and so I always like to come up with, you know, ways where I can share interesting quotes.
Yeah. Well, and I think Chris too is such an interesting portrayal of that struggle, you know, where he's there's without spoilers, there's something that he struggles with, especially in the first couple of books, that I think, you know, if you really wanted to get really philosophical about it, there's a lot to dig into there in terms of themes. And I love when, as authors, these characters kind of come to us and suddenly we're exploring their themes that they just kind of came with. So yeah. So as a whole, what do you hope your readers take away from Threadlight as a series?
Oh man. Well, I don't know.
Really tough questions over here.
I hope that they take away, you know, I think one of the main things I wanted to write was like healthy relationships. I think so many times it's easy to bring conflict into the relationship as like a form of tension in a novel.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I have like a married couple, and then I have, you know, parents and things like this. And I was like, but I also want it to be healthy. Like I want people to forgive each other and trust each other.
Yep.
And want to do everything they can to like help each other and support each other. And so, yeah, a lot of my favorite parts in the books are areas of like forgiveness or trust, or, you know, this person being, you know, willing to open up in ways that, you know, they maybe don't want to, but they know that they should for a healthy relationship. So
yeah. And you mentioned that it was, you wrote it and then it became a SPIFBO finalist, entered it in SPIFBO. I'm sure that exploded things for you in a lot of ways. What was your experience like? Because we just had the SPIFBO 9 finalists revealed, which was very exciting. And I know at least one of them, you know, or a couple of them are newer to fantasy, and it's, I'm sure they're just, what do I do with this? You know, so what was your experience through SPIFBO like, and do you have any advice for the finalists?
Oh man. I mean, like, so timeline wise, like I mentioned, I published the book in March of 2020.
Yep.
I joined the writing group in like April or May, and end of May, I think, is when SPIFBO entries open up. And so I had gotten to the 20 books group, and that's where I found out about this. And I messaged my group and I was like, do you guys know anything about this like SPFBO thing that Mark Lawrence does? Because I know Mark Lawrence, his books and stuff. I really like them.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really know about them. And yeah, so it was wild just entering. I didn't really know anything about it. And then, yeah, like Bookborn says, when Lynn finally announced that it was, I mean, first I became a semifinalist, and I was like, no way. And then I like looked at like the other people that were semifinalists in the group, and there was like people that I was like, oh, these people are like very successful. Like one of them, Rachel Neumeier, she's a hybrid author. She's been traditionally published, and like she has had a very successful career. And I was like, my little book that I wrote that I like for fun, that I, you know, published early for my friends, there's no way.
Right.
And so then she's in UK, and so when she like announced when she was going to announce it, I like, yeah, I woke up early in the morning and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to check. And I was like, and I rolled over and I was like, I was literally in bed on my phone. I rolled over and I was like, Bugman! Oh my gosh. It was super surreal. But as far as like tips go, like just roll with it with your crew. You got a new crew now, like the finalist group. Like we had our own Discord. We still have a Discord. We still talk. I love those people. It's been like, again, it's like another group where I get to like excitedly see everyone's successes as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like Combat Codes was in there, and that got picked
Oh
up by
yeah,
Orbit.
nice.
The
Yep.
Lost War by Justin Lee Anderson also got picked up by Orbit.
Yep.
Patrick Samphire just finished up his series, his Medic Thorn series, and so it's been like, yeah, it's been awesome just to see everybody's successes, and like we're all good friends, and so
Yeah.
that would be my advice for the other finalists. It's like just become good friends with your other finalists. If you need to complain to them. Don't complain anywhere else.
Yep.
And just try to enjoy it because it is very stressful.
Yeah. Well, and how cool, like, you know, all the people that you just mentioned at the time, you're just finalists in Spiffbo. And now, you know, years later, I know all of those names and all of those, I've seen their books on bookshelves. And like, so you never know what the next couple of years after this are going to bring. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Exactly.
What do you think as an indie author? What does indie bring to the fantasy genre? I think this is a big question, but I would love to know your perspective on that.
What I like, so first off, like as a software engineer, we do a lot of experimentation, especially in like apps and stuff. That's what it means is like I can, it's like I work on websites a lot, and we can ship a different version of the website to one person and another version to another person, right? And we call it A/B testing to see like what's going to increase engagement, like which instead of guessing like, oh, I think this is, you know, the best way for things to go. It's like, oh, we run a test. And if it's a big website, you're going to have like, you know, millions of people in each group. And so you get like very statistically significant data to figure it out. And the reason I say this is because indie is kind of like the experimentation group for trad now, right? We're like cozy fantasy that blew up because of indie.
Right.
Romantasy is blowing up because of indie. There's a lot of things like this where like trends, because we can move a lot faster, we can figure out what our readers want, what our users want at any given time, right? And so I think that's really cool that like we don't have to guess, we don't have to be stuck with what an editor at a big traditional publisher wants, because it's like literally one person who gets to decide what, you know, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are going to be reading this year. Now we can be like, oh, well, you know, we stick it on Amazon and people are going to read what they want to read, and we'll see from that rather than the guesswork. And so I think it's really cool having that like fast-paced feedback mechanism with real people. So
yeah. Well, I think too, it's so cool because we're kind of an experimental group of the industry. We have so much freedom to try all these new things. I mean, I've seen some things in indie fantasy this last year reading that I was just like, wow, this is just such a fun, fresh idea. I love this. And like, there's literally something for everyone.
I mean, lit RPG.
Yeah.
Is there any traditionally published lit RPG? And do you know how much money those people make?
A lot.
Holy moly! Like the popular
Dungeon Crawler Carl is right now.
Speaking of Kickstarters, his just did like 370,000 or something.
As you do.
Yeah.
Wild. So. Yeah, I think that's a really good point though too, because and I think it's one of the things that is helping breaking down those barriers, I think, in a lot of ways between trad and indie, because maybe trad is starting to realize that maybe working together and like all, you know, kind of sharing the space is a good thing. So I think that can only help moving forward. And I hope it just continues to bring more attention to both authors of both publishing types, honestly.
Yeah. I would be very interested to see traditional publishers start taking on print runs of indie books, because I think that's an area where like we're not good on the print side, but on the digital side, you know, ebook and audiobook, indie authors are really killing it.
Right.
And so people like Broken Binding have shown that like there is a lot of interest in, you know, good quality print books from indie authors. And I think it's like a pipeline that traditional publishers already have.
Right.
And if they can say, hey, like you keep doing your ebooks and audiobooks, we want your print rights.
Physically, yep.
Dude, that would be awesome. And I think there's something there.
That would be. What do you think? What do both of you think it would take for indie to go mainstream to the point that big box stores like Barnes & Noble, I'm assuming, start regularly stocking it?
Well,
You probably are much more tapped into that than I would be.
I think in reality, like the quality of print on demand books needs to be slightly higher. If you look at like the general paperback of a Orbit book versus the Ingram Spark book, like it's very noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
then
Ingram
secondly,
is even better than Amazon from my
yeah.
experience by a lot.
And then yeah, the price is hard because indie print books are more expensive,
Right.
which also means that like, you know, even when we give discounts, then they're gonna be more expensive in the actual physical bookstore because we're doing print on demand rather than, you know, bulk printing 20,000 books and then sitting in a warehouse and shipping them out to everybody. So I don't know. I mean, I've told Hillary or Bookboard that, dang it, I'm not supposed to do that.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
I've told her that I'm like, it would be kind of fun to like, somebody's going to start this business.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I mentioned with the traditional publishers, somebody is going to start taking on, somebody's going to get a warehouse and they're going to start stocking, you know, piles and piles of popular indie books. And they're going to have connections with all of the Barnes and Noble booksellers and they're going to start getting them there. And they'll be able to, you know, because they're printing in bulk, they'll get them cheaper. They'll be able to make the money from the quantity rather than, you know, singular amounts. So I think, yeah, it's hard. There's not really a good answer for it right now, Bo, besides like booksellers, like out of the kindness of their heart, championing indie books, because financially it's generally not the best thing for them.
For sure. Speaking of the Lit RPG, sounds like Matt Dinneman might be on the verge of a print deal with Trad.
Oh,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's been, that's the trending series right now everywhere. Everybody I know is just obsessed. I started, I'm about 60% through the first book now, and I can see why it's popular. I mean, it's just really fun.
Yeah,
it's very fun. Yeah. Sounds like a company that curates indie in a deal with Barnes and Noble would be the smart move. Yeah, I can see that. Night and day better on Audible. I'm not sure if sorry, I missed the first part of that comment. Maybe. I think those two are tied together. Sorry if they're not, Brian. I can read. And this kind of goes along with this conversation. We've touched on the community a little bit, but there's this phrase that I hear in indie a lot, the rising tide raises all ships, and that idea of, you know, that we're all supporting each other and slowly lifting the quality. Certainly, I think the quality of indie books from when I started, you know, 18 years ago. I mean, back then, that was like the dark ages of self-pub, where we'd come and everybody had their like Microsoft Word gradient cover and, you know, and just seeing the difference now is just blowing me away in the quality of what indie is putting out and the Kickstarters everybody is doing, and the, you know, just the random debuts that are coming out with these incredible covers, and people are really putting a lot of effort into them. And so I think it's definitely, you can see the effect of that. But I was going to ask, do you feel like that's a valid assessment of the indie community as a whole?
Yeah, I think in general, the quality has raised a lot. I mean, there's still a ton that is, you know, just thrown out there. It's not great. And with like AI writing now, there's a ton of that too, which is also like, you know, what's the quality bar there? Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely a shift from, and I think even calling it self-publishing to calling it indie publishing, partially because it's not self anymore, right? Like when I publish a book, it's not just me.
Right.
I'm spending a bunch of money on cover art and cover design and editing and proofreading and narrators.
Yeah,
and so
it's expensive.
There's a lot that goes into it, and it is an army of people. And so I think, yeah, I always like calling it indie publishing too, because I think like if you're doing it right, like it's not self anymore.
Right. It shouldn't be. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think most of us have strong opinions about that, Ryan. I don't want to speak for you, Zach, but I don't know your opinions on AI, but if you want to share them, you're welcome to.
My opinion is we should stop investing in bringing AI to areas that humans like doing, right? Things that people like to do, we should not be trying to replace them, right? And so like the arts, like writing and art and things like that, like we should not be replacing that. Like that is people's passion, right? Replace jobs and things that like people hate doing.
Right. Kyle has entered the building. Where are my sky whales? Zach, why are you not currently writing about sky whales?
So there are sky whales in my epic series, and they're wonderful. They're kind of like,
I'm so excited for that.
Like creature hot air balloons, because that's how it works in the world. Is like they heat up, and then their bodies expand, and then they float.
Nice.
And then they can like flap themselves around and things like that. But
I love that. It's a whole different twist on airships.
Yeah.
Love it. Yep. Keeping AI out of creative fields. Couldn't agree more.
He says that because he's read a bunch of it, because I've submitted a bunch of pieces. He's in my writing group. And so he's
going to be a lot of jealous people in the chat about that. Going back to kind of newer indie authors, and we kind of talked a little bit about putting the effort in and really finding your village. What is a mistake that you see a lot of new indie authors making? And what would you personally do different about your journey if you could change anything?
I think there's, I don't know how, it's not, I don't know. The first thing that came to mind was to market cover art. And I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot, because I'm like, oh, when I get these new books out, like, what do I do? Because there's like, do you do like the like iconography, or do you do like illustrations like I've done previously? I don't know. I think that in general there is an expectation from readers based on what you put on your cover. Yep. And I think sometimes people just get it wrong. I actually got it wrong when I originally printed Voice of War. It had a different cover. And I still really like that cover art. I was in here actually somewhere in the proof copy, but it was not to market. It was not a good cover illustration. It's a beautiful illustration in itself, but it looked kind of like a superhero book almost.
I can see that.
And yeah, so the new one has definitely set, because what your cover art is doing is, it's one, getting people's attention, and then two, it's setting expectations. Same with your title. You're trying to set expectations for people going into what they're going to read. And if you set the expectations incorrectly, people bounce when they're reading. Right. So like that's one of the mistakes I made, was naming Voice of War Voice of War. I actually don't think it's a good title for the book, because there's no war in the book. And a lot of people pick up the book and they're like, oh, what is all this like family dynamic stuff? Like, what?
Ew, I was here for the battles.
Yeah, I would rename it if I could, but I think the marketing aspect of publishing your book, and thinking about like holistically, like what are you trying to portray to people as they're browsing Amazon or Audible or whatever. I think that's something we don't maybe think about thoroughly enough. We're just like, I just want a cool illustration or something.
Yeah. Like, well, and even within the fantasy genre, like, okay, if you're publishing a fantasy book, right, but find your target audience within the fantasy genre, because now we have so many different tones and subgenres and everything else. Your audience, even within fantasy, might be drastically different depending on what type of a book you're reading or writing.
Katie.
It sounds very cozy.
Oh man.
Need to continue listening. Just finished my reread of Voice of War, but haven't moved on yet. I will soon.
The other ones are better.
Heard it from the author himself. You got to keep going. Family Feud. There you go.
Family Feud. It's fitting at least, right?
Yeah, right. Business skill sets to grow are so important for indie, because you really are doing or coordinating it all. You have to learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your work background helped you in that at all?
It did help some, right? Like well, I'll say in two ways. First, like I was able to make a good website pretty easily.
Yep. That's helpful.
Which frankly, I don't know how helpful it actually is like in the long run, but it's helpful, like understanding, how things fit together. But the one, like, frankly, that helped the most is just like I have a good job and I have money that I can spend on art and things like that.
Right.
And a lot of people don't. And so, I mean, that's why we created the Indie Fantasy Fund in the first place. Was we just I felt like guilty. I was like, I've read other books that I think are better than mine, and they don't get read. And I think a lot of it is just because they didn't have the right, marketability.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and I wanted to ask you about that. So perfect segue. Where, coming from the Indie Fantasy Fund side of things, you mentioned a little bit about why you started it, obviously, like giving back, but how did that kind of start and why is it so important to you?
So I kind of started the answer there, right? There's like some guilt for feeling like maybe there are other books that are more deserving than mine. I've had way more success than I ever expected, also, as I've kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
And so the money that I make through the books, I'm kind of just like, well, I didn't expect to have this. And so I would like to try to use that like profit to help other people.
Right.
And Bookborn and I have always been fairly generous in our like funds, like giving to causes that we can and things like that. And it's just been something that's been important to us for a long time.
Yeah.
Even when we were like poor college students, we got married while we were in college, and
so did we.
There was like a moment where she got a like a last minute scholarship, and we like didn't have the money to pay for things, and we're like laying there like crying. Oh my gosh, like thank you so much. And we've wanted to, like, ever since then, like, give back to people. And we're like, oh, what if we like set up like a women in engineering scholarship someday if we ever, make enough to do that. So this is like our step one in trying to pay it back to people that have been good to us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very much in the spirit of the indie community too. And I know a lot of people already have been incredibly boosted by what you guys are doing. So that's pretty awesome. So thank you.
It's so cool to see too.
Like, it is. Man. Yeah. It's fun to see when people are given a little bit of that boost, what they can do with it. That's pretty cool. So, talking about indie books that you think are amazing, what are some immediately off the top of your head that you're like, these are some great indie books that everybody should read?
So the first one that comes to mind, one that I love, and I think a lot of my readers would also love, J.A. Andrews, who is not like super active on social media, but she sells books on Amazon, and her books are awesome, and they're epic fantasy, but probably more just like, I don't know, they're marketed as epic fantasy. I would say they're more like high adventure fantasy, where there's like, elves and dwarves and things like that. But it's the epicness it's not like a Dark Wars and things like that kind of epic. But the way that she writes characters, I'm just like so jealous of. I think she's so good at it.
Yep.
Like there's like a kobold that's like one of my favorite characters of all time. Nice. There's a female dwarf that is also just like one of my favorite characters of all time. And I don't know why, but yeah, I love her books.
Yeah, that's awesome. I haven't read her yet, but I would really like to. And it's always fun as an author when you get to those books. It's a good book when you're like, I wish I had written that. Yeah. That's like such a compliment, I think, to other authors. Oh man, I wish I'd have thought of that. That's so cool.
That's what I thought I know it's not indie, but Jade City by Fonda Lee. I read that and I was just like, dude, this is so cool.
Yep.
Just like everything about it is cool. And I was like, I'm so jealous. It's so cool.
I'm reading Jade Legacy, hopefully that later this month. So I'm very excited to finally finish the trilogy.
Nice.
T says, I will. You've got to read the first one before you can move on, though. Plus, I want that pretty physical book. The omnibus edition?
I think they're talking about the, I'm guessing maybe I don't know.
or the Kickstarter
Oh,
version?
I think it's Threadlight. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe it's talking about Dungeon Carl or something.
No. T
No.
was referring to because he had read Voice of War and is now moving on.
Yes.
Yep. Let's see. PL Stewart. Hi, PL. Speaking of awesome indie authors.
I'll just say one of my other favorite people in the world.
Right?
Kindest human alive.
If PL isn't one of your favorite humans in the world, I am concerned for you.
If he's not, then you don't know him.
Exactly. Threadlight will go down as one of the most beloved indie SFF series of all time. Couldn't happen to a nicer fella. Yep. Here we go. We're getting some Greenbone fans in the chat now. Yeah, I read the first one and I was just completely blown away by, to me, it's like, this is how you utilize fantasy in an urban fantasy setting or an urban setting. It's just brilliantly done. I loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, she lives in Portland and we're in Seattle.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's like 2.5 hours away.
So you're practically neighbors.
She came up for a panel and Bookborn moderated it. And so I was like the tech guy and I like got it all, filmed and things like that.
Yeah.
But I went up to her.
Is that out now?
I think it's on Bookborn's channel somewhere.
Is it?
Yeah,
I'll have to go
last year. Yeah, with her and Django Wexler.
Okay.
Who's also here in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
But I went up to her afterwards and I was like, Fonda, we have something in common. We both have blurbed the combat codes, but you stole my spot. Because she's like on the cover now, and I'm on the cover of book 3 for the combat codes of the indie book. Yeah, she's super, super nice. Yeah,
she awesome. Seems really cool.
Emerald City Comic Con. Yeah.
Yeah. She's been to some conventions. I know. I've never been to a convention. And I know that you've been to several. So which one would you recommend as like, this is a really good one, you should go?
I mean, this is the first year that I've been going to them. Because now I can expense going to them.
Right.
For tax purposes.
That's helpful.
Yeah. So Dragon Con was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Dragon Con was
Florida,
really
Atlanta.
Great.
That one's in Atlanta, right?
Yep. There was a huge indie and traditional group there, and we all just merged together, which I think was awesome. I will say that like some of the bigger name traditional authors definitely like kind of kept more to themselves, which is fine.
That's fine.
But it was really cool. Yeah, I got to meet some people. Like I met Andrea Stewart there, and that's why I ended up reading her book, because I was like, oh well, she was really cool, and I like her a lot. So I got her book, and I was like, hey, your book's good. That's good.
Yeah, that's another thing I tell newer authors too, is just be in the community, because I can't tell you how many books that I have picked up because I had a fun interaction with somebody on Twitter or Discord or whatever. And just being in the community is such a huge exposure. Yeah, I saw Katie was at Dragon Con too.
Yeah.
This one also is one on my bucket list.
That's Worldcon, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so it's in Glasgow in 2024, and then in 2025, it's in Seattle. So you all should come to Seattle for that one. Yeah, we're excited for that. We're not going to Glasgow for next year.
I wish.
But that would be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to post a bunch of pictures, PL, so we can all live vicariously. Yeah, next year I am definitely getting to a convention. It's going to happen.
Do it.
As an unbiased Seattle resident, I'll say Emerald City Comic Con is the best one, and you should all come there.
I need to wrap up a book for Ganesh. Yeah, he bought one for his friend that I need to get over to him. He lives like 15 minutes away from me.
Nice.
So maybe I should just go like drop it off at your door and leave it there. I don't know. Maybe that'd be easier after work.
Yeah. Delivered
he lives in Bellevue and I work in Bellevue. So like maybe after work, I'll just go drop it off.
Yeah. Delivered in person by the author. There you go, Brian. Maybe we'll have to do a road trip to Atlanta next year. Let's see. So the other thing, I have a couple questions left, and then I want to definitely let everybody know what you're working on and what they should follow. And
this is coming off. I'm getting too hot.
Can't handle it anymore.
No more professional.
That's all right. This channel, I expect very high levels of professionalism. So, I'm turning it off now. I wanted to dip into short stories a little bit, because you wrote, you have 5 Silver Rings as your like newsletter sign up short story. And then also your new story in The Advent of Winter, which everybody in the chat, if you haven't backed it yet, I think there's 4 days left. You should definitely back it because there's 24 of us in there, and I guarantee you will find something you love. But writing, I found, and I would love your perspective on this as well, writing a short story, especially in the middle of writing epic fantasy that is much longer and bigger in scope and length. How was that? How is writing short stories after writing novels?
I love it.
Zach's like, I'm just writing short stories for now.
I got my writing started as poetry. I've done like a lot of poetry, and I did a lot of like songwriting. Cool. I've been in like bands and things like that, and so terse writing is my jam.
Nice.
I really enjoyed it. Like 5 Silver Rings was super fun to write. I'm really happy with how it came out.
Yeah.
The Snowmaker's Child and The Advent of Winter, like pretty happy with how it came out. And I've got a couple other ones that I've written recently that like to varying degrees of success, but they've all been very fun to write.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like, and maybe it's the same thing where I talked about how I like having like, structure and things like that. It's like a short story is like, this is what you have to work with.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Whereas like an epic series is like, this is what you have to work with. Good luck.
It's a little overwhelming.
You know how many songs I've written for my new epic series? Because the magic system is based on music. I've got a bunch of like songs, so like I can play on the guitar or the piano. My kids sing them around the house.
Nice.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it's really
unnecessary.
cool when authors. I don't think so. I think it's really cool when authors like pull a passion area to put in their stories because I think it shows, and I think that's part of what makes it unique. Maybe you're sick of hearing them. I don't know, but no, I think that's really cool.
For sure.
No, she's like done, no more. Yeah, I thought it was really funny because back behind the scenes story from Advent of Winter. So Dom had given us our word count cutoff of 5,500, I think, was it something like that? And quite a few of the people in our group were like, "Oh man, I'll try to keep it to 5,500 or less. I don't know. It's gonna be really tough." Zach flies in. He's just like, "I got it. It's
like 3,000 words. Check.
Done." Yep. So you're just making sure that everything balances out. But I think there's something really to that, like Hemingway's write a story in 6 words. I mean, I think there's definitely a skill set to be learned in containing your story to such a short space. And I found it kind of liberating, actually. Because yep, these are my boundaries. I can only go to this certain point. It was kind of freeing. I kind of liked it.
Now the question is, why does somebody who enjoys terse writing epic fantasy?
Well, you could. So would you ever do a short story collection?
That's probably why my books are all under 400 pages, even though they're epic fantasy.
Yep. Well, the nice part is a lot of people, I think, and that's one of the reasons why I would definitely recommend Threadlight as a gateway series for a lot of people, because I think, some people are like, I want to read epic fantasy, but I mean, I'm reading Until the Last right now, and it's, it's a doorstopper.
Chunky.
It's chunky. This is the UK version, and it's even bigger than the US version. So I think it's really awesome that we have such a variety there. And I think for a lot of people, they want to get into epic fantasy, but they're like, don't show me these like 1,000-page, Stormlight Archive door stoppers yet.
Yep. And yet, as an indie author, you put your books in Kindle Unlimited. The longer your book is, the more money you make. So
right.
There's also that. So
Ryan Cahill, sorry, what?
Well, and even on the other side too, right? Like not even Kindle Unlimited, but Audible.
Yeah.
Right? If your book is not over like 15 hours, a lot of people won't pick it up because it's not worth their credit.
Interesting. I never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So you just 16 hours get right over that line.
Yeah.
How long are your audiobooks?
Mine are like 11, 12 hours.
Okay.
So my audiobook omnibus, you can get all 3 for 1 credit. That has done significantly better.
Sure,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Which is weird because I feel like I'm kind of the opposite, where I download a book, and if it's like I downloaded one a while back that was like 28 hours, and I was like, so I actually like when they're
That's
a
how
little
I
bit
feel.
shorter, and I could feel like I can zip through that in a couple days. It'll be great.
Yep.
Brian, glad to hear you play piano, Zach. Nice. How many instruments do you play?
Piano, guitar, and drums.
Nice.
Some ukulele, I guess, but it's basically guitar. So
yeah.
So
Yeah,
most of the songs are really not spoilery. So
well, that's good.
they're just like in world things. Like there's like a nursery rhyme. There's this creepy guy who sings nursery rhymes. There's a lullaby that this guy sings to his sky whales when they get scared during a storm.
Aww.
And I play that on the guitar. My kids like doing that one.
So are we going to be getting a like music album along with the new series?
I was like, like it would be really cool if for the audiobook, if the songs are actually sung and if they want to add, like some string behind them or something. I think that'd be super cool. So
that would be very cool. I actually really like audiobooks that kind of lean more towards the audio drama side of things, where there's a lot of like kind of the cool atmospheric stuff in there.
Very cool.
Most of the audiobooks I read are like 25 hours minimum. Most of them are closer to 40.
Proving my point.
Yep. Couldn't be me, but I admire I admire that. So when you read, do you have a preferred format?
I actually prefer ebooks. I feel like I'm weird in that way. Most people like paperback or audiobooks, but for whatever reason, like I read faster with ebooks and
I do too.
Keeps my attention better. I don't know why.
Yeah. I think it's also nice that it's so portable. I mean, I can't take a stack of books in my purse, but I can throw my Kindle in there and I have 100 books at any time, which is great.
Yep.
Love that. Yeah. Andrew Meredith is narrating my audiobook for Bloodstones. And Andrew, just go really slowly.
Real slow.
Maybe like a 40-hour book and it's only 400 pages.
I will say I have one caveat to that, which is we have our YouTube channel where we have audiobooks, and YouTube has a max of 12 hours. And so books that are less than 12 hours, sweet spot for
Interesting.
For YouTube.
I didn't even think about that. I didn't know YouTube had a limit. I mean, it makes sense, but
it did not used to. So if there are any audiobooks on there or like old videos, they can have, I think, up to like 40 or something. But
sure. So you have to split them all into parts if they're longer.
Yep.
Buying that omnibus Audible tonight. Nice. Hope you enjoy it, Brian. I don't know. I've tried audiobooks. Like I've genuinely given audiobooks a good try, and I like the physical books so much better.
I just can't. Every time I try, I just get so distracted immediately. There's like something will happen, and I'll be like, "Ooh, that was really cool!" Like, "Ooh," and then I'm like, "Oh, how could I do something like that in one of my books?" And then like 10 minutes later, I'm like, "Oh, what am I doing? Like, what just happened?"
I didn't hear the last 10 minutes of that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it really depends. I think it's again cool that there's so many options, because everybody definitely, I have so many friends that are like audiobook junkies, and that's awesome because they can listen to it while they're working or on their commute or anything, and I think that's also awesome. It's just
Bookborn's the same, where like digital she can't do for a long period of time. Like too much screen time will give her headaches, but
yep.
So
I know
she prefers paperbacks.
There's a couple of people that I offered e-arcs to of Bloodstones, and right away they were like, I would love to read it, but I can't read digital. I'm like, you know what? That's fair. Don't worry about it. Let's see. Longest audiobook I listened to was 64 hours. Oh man,
That's
I don't have the patience. Yeah. I don't know what book was it?
Was that an omnibus or
War and Peace? Hey, Palmer.
Hey.
Let's see. Ebooks do make the chonkers especially less intimidating. I don't have the attention span for audiobooks. Yeah, that's true. That's
you and me, Chris.
True.
You and me.
Yep. All right. So my last question for you, Zach, is what is next? What's your plan for the next year? What's exciting coming up for you that we should know about?
I mean, I'm going to work on those 2 books, or the core like writing things. I do have a third book that I'm kind of working on also, which is my Pokemon meets John Wick book.
Nice. Okay. I'm here for it.
Which my writing group also has really enjoyed.
Good.
That one will definitely be an indie book when it's done. But what, yeah, so there's going to be a bunch of writing that I'm going to do. I do want to find an agent, whether that means for traditional publishing or whether it means for translation deals.
Yep.
Either of those. I do have unofficial news that Voice of War is getting translated into Italian next year, which is
very cool.
Pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
And yeah. Oh, and then I got another short story going into a anthology that I can't announce yet, but I'm super excited about because
very cool.
Should be alongside a bunch of traditional authors, which would be kind of cool.
Cool. I love that so much of that is mixing now. That makes me very happy. I love, even on Twitter, one of my favorite things has just been all the conversations where you see indies and trad authors, everybody's just talking and sharing ideas and discussions, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually having a conversation with Stephen Aryan in a couple of weeks on his channel to talk about indie publishing. He's had a bunch of conversations with like really popular, like he's chatted with like Michael R. Miller and Ryan Cahill and stuff like that. And I'm like, look, man, you got to talk to some people who are not like, the top 0.01% of their genre.
Right.
And I'm like, if you want some, some other thoughts, talk to me.
Yeah.
Because I met him last year at FantasyCon in London.
Nice.
I was there for work and scheduled my work trip when FantasyCon was going to happen so that I could go.
That worked out nicely. I know. I love the idea that you can, like, as an author, you can expense, like, oh yeah, I went to a convention. That was totally a work expense. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Networking.
Heck yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
You can expense the books you buy.
Exactly.
Pete, I thought of you when I was working on that one day, actually.
Pete's ready.
Like, not even joking. I was like, I bet Pete would love this book. I don't know why I thought that, but I can
see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Do you know what the main character's name is? Tom Blade.
Nice. That sounds appropriately John Wick-esque.
So it's the Pokemon are dragons in this, and they get sucked into these osmium marbles, and then they can get pulled out.
Nice.
But it came because I was actually at the 20 Books conference last November. The one in Vegas, the big indie conference. And I remember I had the idea for that. I don't even know what, I was in one of the sessions and I came out and I went up to some guys in my writing group and I was like, guys, I have an idea. A ridiculous idea. And then, so I ended up working on it a little bit, but yeah.
You need a village of people who are as weird as you are so that when you come up with these crazy ideas, they're just like, yeah, do it, instead of okay. Shady Kara, Voice of War.
Ooh, yeah.
I think that's close. I don't speak Italian or anything, but I speak
Spanish, and from a Latin root perspective, that sounds right.
Yeah. If it's Shin Megami Tensei meets John Wick, so you have my attention. There you go. You need to do like a Wuxia John Wick next. So close. Well, Zach, thank you so much for sharing so much of your evening with us. For anybody in the chat who, for some reason, has not checked out your series yet, there is a link down in the description box below that you guys can go check it out. Also, go check out Zach's website, which, by the way, is one of my favorite resources for Spiffbo. I appreciate that so much. It's so helpful.
Thank you for saying that, because it's so much work.
I know.
It makes me happy whenever people are like, oh, I love that site. I'm like, okay,
it's amazing. I send people to that all the time because it's such a fast, easy visual. You can see what books you like. It's just perfect. So yeah, thank you for all the work you do, because it looks like a lot of work, but I use it a lot. So I appreciate it.
The work is done though. Like once the finalists are announced, I'm free.
I'm out. Yep.
No more work to do.
That's a lot of work, I can imagine. Yeah, thank you everybody in the chat for hanging out with us. Again, check out the links in the description, and I will do my best to remember to put Advent of Winter in the chat box after we are done.
Yes, go support it.
Yeah, 4 days left. 24 indie authors. It's running like an advent calendar. You'll get the digital copy once every day from December 1st to the 24th, and then the hardback beautiful foil cover by Katrina Paints is coming out.
So good.
February, March, somewhere in there, something like that. I don't know. We don't know. We're just in it. We just work here.
I don't know.
We're just the authors. We don't have to do anything. Yeah, absolutely. Go to Spiffbo site. So if you're curious to see who was awesome. In what blogs or what judging groups, and you want to see who was all semifinalists and stuff, definitely go and check out Zach's website, and you can get a short story for free when you sign up for his newsletter. So you should do that too. Zach, again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Tori. You're the best. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for hanging out.
See you guys later.